What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Gotham Graffiti. We are doing something new this week with a Star Wars Takeover. We will do these sporadically just throughout our filming future, not in any particular order or set date. Just when we feel like we want to switch things up, get some more Star Wars content out there, we're going to do that. And so that's what we're doing today. We're kind of rounding out our series of doing like lists and rankings we've done over the last month or so. This will be the finale of that. And we're going to go into some new content with next week's episode, but this is how we're closing it out. So we've got some good Star Wars stuff for you today, and we're going to start it out hot, smoking hot even, with ranking our top 5 favorite characters from Star Wars. Now, just for clarification, he's a much bigger Star Wars fan than I am.
Yes, I'm very excited for this one.
He's more passionate about Star Wars than he is comic books, and I vice versa.
Yeah.
So
we're doing a trade-off this week.
So he's the true purist fan. I didn't get into Star Wars until, well, okay, just for clarification. I always liked Star Wars. I thought it was cool. I watched the movies as a kid, but like I didn't really get into it until...
Because what, it was like 2019,
It was honestly what it was we
started playing Battlefront. Is that
well,
what
I had been playing... Because I played the OG Battlefronts. I just thought they were fun games. What really got me into Star Wars was the Mandalorian. And it was because he called me up one day, and I'm a big Western movie fan, and so he called me up and he goes, "Hey, you got to watch The Mandalorian," and I was like, "Yeah, I keep hearing people talk about it, but like maybe." And he goes, "No, dude, it's like if there was a space Clint Eastwood and Batman had a baby," and I was like, "All right,
I'll give it a watch."
And so it was off from there. So I am quite a Star Wars fan now. I mean, as you can see, I've got a line of hot toys from Star Wars. But yeah, just so you know, going into this discussion, he is more of the purist. So we'll start it out with him and his number 5.
Yes. So again, we're doing top 5, our top 5 favorite Star Wars characters, and my number 5 is Darth Maul.
Okay.
So that was a really tough spot because
that's so disrespectful.
I know. I wanted to put him higher. There's just some other characters that I like a little bit more. And I almost thought about not including him on the list because I'm like, being at 5...
That would have been blasphemous.
Yeah. I'm like, I can't leave out Darth Maul.
He's the coolest.
We have him in the Phantom... I'm sure you're going to talk about him too. But like, we had him in the Phantom Menace. He was easily, besides maybe like Qui-Gon, he was the best part of that movie. And then especially what they did with him after the fact with Clone Wars made him possibly one of the greatest characters in Star Wars. Just like from his arc, what he did, everything he had with the crime syndicate. He almost became more of like an anti-hero Sith kind of guy.
Like an anti-establishment.
Yeah, which was really cool to watch. And I remember like when I really watched through the Clone Wars, because I had seen a couple episodes when I was a kid, but I didn't actually watch it until when I was a little older. But I remember watching and I was kind of like, I'm kind of like really low-key rooting for Maul right now. Like he's like kind of right.
I'm not supposed to be rooting
for him.
But
he's obviously killing people, so that's bad. But like he kind of has a point.
His brother's really cool.
Yeah. His brother, Savage Opress, is really cool. And like it is kind of a shame because I know at the end of Solo they did like a teaser for him.
Yeah, dude, they've got Maul is like so many different examples in DC and Marvel of like. It's just he's a money-making machine, Disney just will not touch him.
Yeah.
They will. I don't know why, but they will not touch him. So, to your point, 100%.
But anyway, I had to put him at number 5 only because there's a few more characters that I like a little bit more, but he's still one of my favorite Star Wars characters. So.
I like that. As long as you had him in the top 5.
Yeah, he's there. Don't worry. He's there. What about you?
So my number 5 is Din Djarin, the Mandalorian. I know
really?
I know that's super like. Recency bias, like I get it.
I figured you would have put him higher.
No. I've got some no. Okay. But for me, like I said, The Mandalorian is what got me into Star Wars. Like, because to me, I always viewed Star Wars as kind of like, I don't want to say goofy, but like it was just like I didn't take it super seriously. I was always kind of like, yeah, they fight with the lightsabers and but like I remember watching the first season of Mandalorian and I was like, oh, like. All right, like Star Wars can be dark and gritty and violent and, have stakes and everything else and it not be this Lord of the Rings-esque story every time they produce something.
Right.
And so, like I said, he's what originally got me into Star Wars. I've got the Mandalorian hot toy in my collection. I've got a few trades of his. He's just no. I did not like the third season. Didn't really like it.
I don't think anybody did. To be fair.
Yeah, I did not like the third season. I'm getting the. I'm gonna get the steel books. They're coming out this year. Steel books of the first 3 Mando seasons.
Oh yeah.
I'm only getting the first 2. I don't really want to get the third one. So, but
or you can get the box set, but only watch the first 2
yeah,
seasons.
yeah, no, exactly. But and the show just gave us so many cool moments. I mean, you get the Luke Skywalker moment at the end of season 1. I mean, you just get so much. I feel like Mandalorian really was able to, in a non-comic or novelization way, delve into a different aspect of Star Wars that a lot of, like me as a casual person, didn't know was there until you watched the show, that you already knew was there as a diehard fan. So I just think that Mando, I think, is super pivotal to the history of Star Wars, and it's what got me into Star Wars. So yeah, he's my number 5.
Well, yeah, I think because like right around when Mandalorian was really hot, the rest of Star Wars was like really struggling at that point, because we were right in the middle of the sequel trilogy, which we could do an entire another episode on the sequel trilogy just by itself. But anyway, we had the rough go of the sequel trilogy, and Mando was kind of the thing that really pulled Star Wars fans back into the fold after being burned by the sequel trilogy and like a couple of the projects here and there that were just kind of eh. So I do think he's a great character. I think he was definitely an important part of the lore. But
plus, he just looks cool, man. He does.
Also,
dude, it's one of my favorite dialogue lines in Star Wars is when I think it's the first episode when he says he's collecting the bounty and he goes, and the guy's like trying to be like, yeah, you're not gonna bring me in. He's like, I can bring you in warm, and then he takes the big side and he goes, or I can bring you in cold. Like, it doesn't matter to me, man. I'm taking you either way.
So, I'm getting paid either way.
All right, so let's go to your number 4. What's your number 4?
So my number 4, a little bit different.
Okay.
I couldn't decide. So I wanted to throw in a clone in there because I really like the clones.
Okay.
But I couldn't decide on one. So I actually have 2 characters for this one. I have Captain Rex and Fives.
Okay.
So I might say something a little bit of a hot take. Fives is my favorite clone, not Rex. Okay. Rex is my second favorite. I'll speak a little bit about Fives first. So before I watched the Clone Wars seriously, Rex was obviously my favorite clone. I think he's a lot of people's favorite
He's the
clone.
Superman of the clones.
Which, like, yeah, understandably so. But when I watched that episode, like 3-episode arc, where Fives is the one who realizes the whole thing about like the implant chip thing
the implant, yeah.
That's going to make all the clones execute Order 66, and like watching him like risk everything, like, because prior to that it was just like, oh, Republic versus Separatists, we're going at it.
Pretty black and white.
But he figured out the entire plot. It's like, oh no, this whole war is a sham, and like we're fighting for nothing, and
I'm losing brothers in vain.
Darth Sidious is behind this, and we're all dying for no reason. And so like he risked. I mean, he ended up losing his life over it, but like he risked everything to just be like, look, someone please listen to me. This whole thing is not what you think it is. And like, I mean, obviously, Order 66, happened in like 2005, but like if they had just listened to Fives,
right,
then
a lot of it probably wouldn't
like
have gone
the
through.
Entire, like, I bet you like the original trilogy probably would have never happened.
Or they could have just granted Anakin Skywalker the rank of master.
Or I'm not okay. Maybe not that big, but there a lot of things would have been different. Like if Star Wars ever does a What If series, I want to see,
which we need one so bad.
Well, I know we do, but like if we ever get that, I want to see what would happen if Fives actually got through to the Jedi and Darth Sidious's plot was discovered before it was ready. Like, what would have happened?
Yeah.
And
that'd be sweet arc.
Yeah, and so like just watching that arc, he and plus he just looks really cool. He's got the ARC Trooper, excuse me, the ARC Trooper pauldrons, and like he just looks really cool. Anyway, I'll go into Rex. I mean, there's not really anything I could say that hasn't really been said
about
before
Rex.
About Rex. He's easily probably one of the coolest clones. Just his relationship with Obi-Wan and with Anakin, and how much of a leader he is. The fact that Ahsoka was able to get his chip out, and like he even goes on to fight for the Rebels in the original trilogy. There's just so many cool things about him.
Oh yeah, that's right. He's in Rebels.
Well, he's in Rebels, and it's funny, they actually retconned. I don't know if you remember this. in Return of the Jedi, there's like a bearded dude that's on the Rebel Alliance. He's like a background character, like with a white beard.
Oh, have they retconned that as Rex?
They've retconned that's now Rex.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is really cool.
That's cool.
But yeah, he's a leader. He's one of the best clones in the clone army. Watching him grow as a character from being like the I follow orders, no questions asked, to like what are we doing here?
Good soldier.
Yeah, good soldiers follow orders. He questions a lot of things. He ends up being like an outlaw for several years up until when the Rebel Alliance was formed. And even in the Rebel Alliance, in the show Rebels, he was the one that catapulted a lot of like the stuff that became the Rebel Alliance. But yeah, like I said, there's not a whole lot I could say that hasn't been said. He's my second favorite clone for a reason. So,
well, off that, my number 4 is Captain Rex.
Captain Rex.
Captain. I mean, for some of the same reasons you said, but for me, I've always loved the reason, not the reason, but one of the main reasons that Batman is my favorite character in comics is I really love the characters that don't have special abilities, but just have the balls to like be that guy, to have the wits and the smart and the there's an old John Wayne quote that's courage is being scared as hell but saddling up anyway. And it's like I love those characters that they're not metahuman. They don't have they're not he's not in touch with the Force. He doesn't have a lightsaber. He's just a military trained dude with 2 sidearms, and
he does not care who you are.
And he's like, I don't care if you got a lightsaber. I don't care if you've got another gun. I don't care if you're scary look. It doesn't matter.
He's gonna run the one.
I'm gonna run the one with you, or at least try my best. And if I die trying, I die trying.
Yeah.
Also, just because going in when I watched the Clone Wars for the first time in 2021, and obviously at the time I was not super familiar with a lot of the other clones, but of course that's the way they intended it. Rex took to me immediately.
Right.
He's just cool. Like I don't have a whole lot of stuff other than that. He's just cool. He's cool. I love the fact that he doesn't care. I love the fact that he's probably the most, I don't want to say he's the most dedicated, but he's the most like hard-nosed bulldog. I'm a big football guy, so like to make an example, he's like the strong safety of like the 501st. Like he's just like he's gonna shoot the A gap. Like he doesn't care if he's a smaller guy. He'll load up as the 8th man in the box. Just he's that guy, and that's the reason I love Rex. So yeah, he's my number 4. So
Well, before we move on, I know we'll move on in a second, but like for Rex, one thing I forgot to mention is just how much he loves like his brothers. And like how loyal he is to the clone army, and like it reminded me of that scene where Ahsoka was able to get the chip out of his head, and like you see him like lower his head, and she takes off his helmet, and you just see like the tears streaming down his face, and he's like, all of my brothers are out to kill me, and they'll stop at nothing to destroy you and me.
So it's like the realization of it's him, them, or me.
Yeah, and it was just like a heartbreaking thing to watch. Like he had been fighting with all of these guys for 3-4 years at this point, and now he's gonna possibly have to kill some of them to get away.
Yeah.
But anyway, like even before that, like how much he cares about the people that he, not only just the clones, but the Jedi that he has, in command over him.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, yeah. Let's go into your third.
So my third is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes, he was. He's always been my second favorite Jedi. He's just like throughout the original trilogy, he's just such a wise counsel for Luke. And when Luke, he's trying to figure out his place in all this, and he was always very like the old wise man who always just had a level head and all of that. And then obviously going into the prequels, I mean, when the prequels first came out, they weren't received well, but like everybody loved Ian McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes.
Like he's easily the best part of that trilogy. And just watching...
Whoa. Darth Maul's in that trilogy, sir.
Oh, sorry. My bad. But for me personally.
All right.
For me personally. But like obviously the relationship between him and Anakin that drives the entire plot of the sequel, or not the sequel trilogy, the prequel trilogy. And like the cool thing about Obi-Wan is just his resilience to stay on the good side. Like he doesn't falter, he doesn't waver to the dark side. Like for context, he lost his master, He lost his lover in Dutch, Satine. He lost all of his friends in the Clone Wars, all the clones that he cared about.
Padawan.
His Padawan and Anakin. And then he ended up losing...
Lost his clone battalion.
Yeah, he ended up losing his own life in, the first Star Wars movie. And there's actually some of the coolest interactions with Obi-Wan Kenobi are between him and Maul, just because they have so much beef over the years.
Oh, dude, it's so good.
Yeah, and there's two like dialogue sequences between the two of them that just gets me
Get you going.
Yeah, and it's the one where he's about to kill Satine. And
that's such a good episode.
yeah, and Obi-Wan's the dark side is only for the weak, only the the small-minded embrace it. And Maul goes, he's like, it's more powerful than you could ever know. And then Obi-Wan says, he's like, but those who oppose it will always be more powerful than you could ever be. And I was like, yes.
And then Maul kills his girl.
Yeah, and then Maul kills his girl, which is sad. But it's just a cool moment. And then the other thing was in Rebels, when they meet in the desert, and he's an old man, and Maul's, he's like, look at what's become of you. You're a rat in the desert. And he's like, but look at what I've risen above. And it's just he's just if there is one character in Star Wars, maybe besides Luke Skywalker, that embodies hope and resilience, that is Obi-Wan Kenobi. And
well, I mean, and especially even now, granted, I'm not a huge fan of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, but
yeah, there's still some really good stuff.
But even like that is you're watching where in that period of time where he's like a day slave, he's working for pennies on the dollar. He is just a blue in space, a really cheap blue collar worker.
Yep.
And he could go to the other side and live a much more lavish, comfortable, easy life, but he's I refuse to do it. I will not do that.
Yeah.
I will live in the desert in a hut and make no money and die out here before I join that side of the army.
And still honoring the request of Yoda and Bail Organa to protect and make sure that Luke will stay safe. And even some of the comics I've read with Obi-Wan Kenobi, he's just such a cool character.
Yeah.
And
I'm with
for a lot of people, he is the standard for Jedi, and I can definitely see why.
He was when I was a kid. Before I really knew a lot about Star Wars, Obi-Wan was I was the Clone Wars Obi-Wan for Halloween when I was 9.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan was just the Jedi.
Yeah.
You're it's Obi-Wan Kenobi. That was the Jedi.
Yeah.
So he's Superman of Star Wars.
Pretty much, yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
But anyway, what's your number?
So my number 3 is my favorite Jedi, and that is Mace Windu.
Ooh, yes.
So for context, Mace Windu was my favorite as a kid because my favorite color is purple. It's still my favorite color to this day. But obviously, you're a kid and you just pick him because you're like, oh, cool, he's got a purple lightsaber,
Yeah.
sweet. But I got a little bit older, through watching the Clone Wars, and then I've read some of the Mace Windu runs at comics, and even on the note of the purple lightsaber, the way he gets that crystal is such a cool story. It's not just it's purple to be purple. It's
because he saved a planet. And
yes,
they gave him that. As
they have
a
this resource of this
Yeah.
super rare crystal. They're like, here, this is our gift to you for saving us, kind of thing.
Right.
There's even a story behind the color of his lightsaber and why he's one of the only ones to have it. Also, he's probably arguably, in terms of one-on-one combat, the Jedi's best chance of beating the Emperor. He was going to beat the Emperor.
If
Anakin didn't interfere, Mace Windu would have handled that.
Well, he was at the height of the Republic. Whenever the council that we see in the movies, he was just under Yoda as far as
second in command.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, the only reason that Yoda maybe didn't have as good of a fight against is just because he was older. He just was not at the peak of his capabilities physically. But and I love, he's kind of he's like the Martian Manhunter character of the Jedi.
That's a good comparison.
He's super wise, he's super disciplined, he's not super eccentric or doesn't have a huge personality one way or the other. He's what are the facts? What's the best way to go about this situation? And how are we going to get it done? And also, I have a purple lightsaber that I know how to use very well. And also, just even in the prequels, he cuts off Jango Fett's head. It's just
one of the best bounty hunters of the time.
He's really cool.
Yeah.
Mace Windu for me is always my favorite Jedi. I also think he doesn't get enough love. I don't think he's in enough stuff. I think he could use more comic book runs, especially in terms of like whenever we see Mace, a lot of the times it's like when he's like in his 40s. Late 30s. Like, it would be cool to see, like, a young Mace Windu.
Well, that would be cool if they do, like, a season 2 of Tales of the Jedi.
And they do a Mace Windu episode?
Yeah, and they show, like, how he got the purple
like
crystal.
Like a 20s Mace Windu?
Yeah.
That would be really cool, yeah. So I just think there's a lot of potential with Mace Windu, and he's always been my favorite Jedi.
Yeah, and before we move on, you know the story of how he, like, in real life, how he got the purple lightsaber, right?
Yeah, he told George
he was like,
get a purple
hey,
one?
can I get a purple one? And George was like, I don't know, we'll see. And so when they were doing like the first round of cuts for Attack of the Clones, they like gave him a purple lightsaber, and they brought in Sam Jackson, and he's like, hey, this is what you would look like with a purple lightsaber. He's like, oh, that's really cool. And they're like, don't get attached though. And then Sam Jackson went to go watch the movie on opening night, and he's like, I have a purple lightsaber.
And then George was like, all right, let me figure out how to make this canon.
Yeah. He's like, I'll
figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, dude, you got Sam Jackson as one of your Jedi. It's like, yeah, man, if you want to have a purple lightsaber, you can have it.
Well, it's funny, too, is if you go and buy, like, any of the toys that were from the Phantom Menace of Mace Windu, he has a blue lightsaber. He doesn't have a purple one.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so, like, if you were to go on eBay and find one of those super rare
it's like
figures,
a blue...
it's a blue lightsaber. It's not a purple one.
Okay.
Because that was originally what his lightsaber color was going to be.
Right on. But, all right, well, let's go into your number 2.
So... my number 2 it's 2 characters, but it's the same character. It's Darth Vader / Anakin Skywalker.
Yep.
And growing up, Darth Vader was, other than maybe like the Joker, he was like my favorite villain of all time.
He was the bad guy.
He was the bad guy, and it's just in the original trilogy, just how cold, calculated, and just like as a matter of fact he is about everything.
It's like a military leader.
Yeah, he's just so powerful. He doesn't really care about a whole lot. He's just like, I'm just going to get the job done. I'm going to kill whoever I have to and do what I have to do. Mm-hmm. But the cool thing about it is that when we got to go back into the prequels, and I know there are a lot of people, like when the prequels came out, they're like, oh, they turned Darth Vader into like a whiny little, runt or whatever it is. But I actually think that it added to the character of Anakin / Darth Vader as a whole, because not only, because we see like the development of him from a whiny teenager who just wants his way to a cold, calculated killer who nobody can mess with, and he strikes fear into anyone in the galaxy. But we also see like the man behind the mask, just how tortured and tormented he is as a person. At
the end of the day, he's almost still a little boy.
Yeah, like he's still that little boy who just wants that recognition from whoever who will give it to him. But not only like the physical or the psychological torment that he goes through all the time, but the physical torment he goes through. Like the suit that he wears, it was specifically designed by Sidious to be uncomfortable, to keep him under Sidious, because if he didn't have that, he'd be more powerful. And 2, just to keep him in that dark place of just meditating on all the horrible things that have happened to him, and
constant pain.
How bad his life turned out, of what he was supposed to be versus what he turned out to end up being. And then you have the very end of the original trilogy with Luke Skywalker, where he finally comes to terms with all of the horrible things that he's done as a person, and that deep down he is still good. Like there's still good in him, but he finally makes the choice. It's like, okay, it's not too late, and I'm not going to let another one of my family members die just because I'm so engrossed into the dark side. And Luke was the one that brought him out.
It's like it's not going to be because of me again.
Yeah, and like one of my favorite moments in Star Wars ever is when he's dying and like Luke's dragging him to the ship, and he takes off his mask and he goes, Luke, you were right. You were right about me. Tell your sister that you were right. Like there's still, and it's like, the story of redemption, like no matter how bad, how far gone you are, like at the end of the day, there's still hope.
There's still light at the end of the day.
Yeah, which, it's a great message. And going beyond Star Wars, like that's just a great message of just hope.
Star Wars ends up becoming borderline a biblical theme.
Yeah,
it's just the way especially the story of Anakin Skywalker, the way it's played out through all the lore we've gotten, whether it's comic books, Clone Wars, prequels, the original trilogy, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show,
right,
where it's And when I mean biblical, I don't mean like in a spiritual way. I mean in terms of like when you were in English in 7th grade and you learned what like a biblical theme is.
Right.
Like that's the level of storytelling and characterization they give these characters like Anakin and Darth Vader. Like I was always, when I was a kid, I did not like that Darth Vader was in the conversation with Joker. Like it always bothered me. I was like, dude, like he's not.
I remember we used to fight about
I was like, he's not on the level of Joker, as because especially like I'm watching Nicholson's Joker and Mark Hamill's Joker in the animated series, and then Heath Ledger, and I'm like, what are y'all talking about? And then I do a little bit of research, and I'm like, oh, maybe not in terms of performance as a villain, but in terms of storytelling and as a character, he's right there. I mean, I still take Joker, but he's right there. And he is Star Wars.
Yeah.
He is Star Wars.
Because the whole thing of Star Wars is hope. That's the whole meaning and message of Star Wars. And you see him go from, a slave boy to, a great Jedi to a fallen, broken man to a cold, calculated killer, then to a redeemed man at the end. It's a great over 6 movies.
Who's a father who's trying to save his children.
Exactly. Like it's just over that 6 movie arc, despite whatever grievances people may have about, 8-year-old Anakin and Phantom Menace. It's
dude,
just
that poor kid. He's like 28 now. He's like, dude, I was just trying to, I was trying to give a good performance, man.
But anyway, so Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, my number 2.
So my number 2 is it's the boy, Boba Fett.
Nice.
Boba Fett for me. Like I said, what intrigued me in Star... So, like, really quick, I know that some of y'all are going to be hearing my list and you're picking a bunch of, like, B characters. What intrigued me about Star Wars is the characters that aren't Jedi and Sith, is the characters that are more... I don't want to say street level, but if there's
no such thing in Star Wars.
If there was a street level Star Wars, that's my niche of Star Wars I like the most. And Boba Fett is, like... He's just the definition of dangerous. He's a dangerous man. And, for a long time, I didn't, think much of Boba Fett because, you watch him fall into a Sarlacc pit and you're like, oh, okay, I guess, he's just another bounty hunter.
Yeah.
But then, you do a little bit of research. You watch some of the Clone Wars when he's a little boy and you see what he's doing as a little boy. You read some comic books. You get into some of the other lore of Boba Fett. You get into... Not Boba Fett show, but Boba Fett when he's in The Mandalorian.
Yes.
Actually, you know what? The first 3 episodes of Boba Fett are not bad, but
the first 2 with the Tusken Raiders.
It's like those first 2 or 3 are
those,
pretty solid.
Yeah, those are pretty good.
And then the end with but even then it's it's not even Boba show anymore.
Yeah, it's like Bounty Hunter and Friends.
But Boba Fett, he is aesthetically super cool. So obviously as a kid I thought he looked super cool. Getting into it, you learn that at the end of the day he's a man who's trying to live up to his father. That's really what Boba Fett is. Now, yes, he's about his money, and he is about his job, and he doesn't have an issue shooting you in the head while you're watching him do it. But at the end of the day, he's trying to live up to his father as a bounty hunter. He truly idolized his father. There was no daddy issues or anything. He was like, my dad is the man. I'm lucky if I end up being a fraction of what he is. And so you see throughout his life, he's constantly just trying to live up to that name, Fett. Because that's the thing, is a lot of times when you're reading comics and stuff, they don't call him Boba Fett. His name is Fett. They call it, because it's we know your dad. We know the lineage you come from. So he understands that, hill he has to climb and, get to. That's something especially I can relate to with my father. And so I've always loved Boba Fett. He's just super cool. I mean, like he was talking about last week in his trade, he ran the ones with Luke Skywalker and Luke didn't win.
Nope.
He's just that guy. He's that bounty hunter. I've always loved him. He's just really cool. He's also one of the characters that has a lot of in terms of comic books, has a lot of lore and has a lot of good, because I think a lot of times with comic books is you get into situations where you don't want to always read world-ending stories.
Right.
You want those sprinkled in and out. He's one of these characters that maybe he's a part of something here and there. But 9 times out of 10, when you're reading Boba Fett, you're watching him collect a bounty, you're watching him go do something for a friend, or you're seeing him protect, a certain someone because he has sympathy towards them, or whatever it is. You're watching Boba Fett be a bounty hunter in the Star Wars galaxy on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, and that's why I love the character.
Yeah, and it's really upsetting. At
Really
times.
quick, he's Deathstroke of Star Wars.
Yeah, easily.
That's a better way. He's the Deathstroke of Star Wars.
Well, and like you're saying, he's the Deathstroke of Star Wars. And what I was about to say is it's really sad, like in the movies and the TV shows, other than like Clone Wars and like that one episode of him in The Mandalorian. It's just how much he's dumbed down and like not the true character of Boba Fett.
Like I said, I didn't know about it until I started reading.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if you read a Boba Fett comic, you're like, oh, he's actually really dangerous. Like he's not just the guy that Han Solo accidentally bumped him and he fell in the sun.
No, he's like the assassin in the entire galaxy.
And it's a shame that we don't really get to see that on screen very often. And when we do, it's like breaks the internet.
Right, and it's for 8 seconds in a sequence.
And it's
of
like,
something.
oh, well, there's Boba Fett. Okay, he's gone. Like,
yeah. So, but yeah, that's my number 2. So now we're going into your number 1.
So my number 1. It's a vanilla answer, but vanilla ice cream is really good. Mine is Luke Skywalker. And it will always and forever be Luke Skywalker because of really just one simple reason, is the fact that he refused to give up. Because if you watch the original trilogy...
not if you watch the sequels.
Yeah, we don't count those.
Those aren't canon.
Yeah, no, I refuse to believe that the man I saw watching The Last Jedi is the same man from Return
Dude,
of the
especially
Jedi.
when Mark Hamill himself was like, came out and been like, yeah, that's not what I would have done. Like, that's not the character I play.
Quick side rant. When I got home after watching The Last Jedi, I like burst into my sister's room and I was like, I have to tell you something. And I went off.
Rant.
I went off for like an hour talking about how dirty they did Luke in that movie. And then like I was like, and she hardly got a word in here and there, and I was just like, okay, I'm upset, I'm gonna go to bed now.
I'm gonna go rest.
Yes, but anyway, so like I said, he refused to give up. So if you watch the original trilogy, after he figures out that Darth Vader is his father, even Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda, they were saying like, Vader's too far gone, you're not gonna beat him. Like you need to get as good to defeat him, and then like you need to kill your father. Like he's a cold, calculated killer. Because obviously they've seen what happened in the prequel trilogy.
They watched him kill children.
Kill children. The Jedi. What he's done since then. Enslaving planets to the Empire and all of that. And like the fact that he was like, no, there's still good in my father, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. Like almost to the point of a true Jedi, like not only fighting when you need to,
right,
and using compassion and love to try and get through to your enemies. And my favorite line from Star Wars ever is whenever he's like, the Emperor's trying to get him to kill his father, whenever the dark side takes over him for a brief second, and he like dispatches Darth Vader, and the Emperor's like, do what must be done, kill him, whatever, and he just goes, no.
Yeah, no.
No, he's like, I'm a Jedi like my father before me, you failed, Your Highness.
Yeah.
Like, it's just that...
Sticking it to him.
Yeah, and it's just like the fact that he had like the gall to stand up to the most powerful Sith Lord other than like Darth Plagueis in Star Wars history, and he knew more than likely him choosing compassion for his father over the quick, easy way of him just striking him down, giving into his... he saw, planets die. He saw his friends tortured. He watched Obi-Wan Kenobi get killed. And all of that. He could have easily given into all of that like his dad did. And he's like, no, I'm going to make the better decision. I'm going to do what my dad couldn't do. And I'm going to choose compassion over my father and stick it to the guy who will more than likely kill me here in the next...
I was going to say, which very well could have killed him.
Yeah, and if Darth Vader didn't step in, Luke would have died. Like, that's plain and simple.
But he was willing to die by his sword.
Exactly. He was like, I believe so much in good and what my father could have been that I'm willing to take it to my grave. That is why Luke Skywalker will always be my favorite character in Star Wars.
I can't argue anything on that, my man.
Yeah. So, anyway, what's your...
Well, so my number 1 is Darth freaking Maul, dude.
I knew it!
Is Darth Maul.
I knew it.
So, the very first form of Star Wars media I ever consumed as a child was for people our age. You remember going to the Scholastic Book Fair when you were in elementary school? Well, they had this Darth Maul book. And it was like maybe 200 pages. It wasn't anything. It was a little chapter book. But it was a novelization about Darth Maul and like his childhood, how he was trained by Sidious, and the life he lived, and being taken from Dathomir and everything else. And I remember I remember reading, that was like one of the first books as like a kid that was one of those, like, I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
Like, I would read it, like, okay, I'll read it later tonight. Like, no, I still want to read it. And I burned through it in like 2 or 3 days. And ever since then, dude, I was hooked on Darth Maul. So like, even in the time that I wasn't super big into Star Wars, if something with Darth Maul was going on or there was a collectible or a trade came out, I would get it. I love characters that have been through hell because in times of like struggle in my own life, it's very easy to relate. And it's very easy for me to be like, okay, well, you know, my mom calls it when I was a kid and I was going through something or whatever it was, she'd be like, honey, she goes, you got to walk in there like you're Bruce Wayne. And like that, but like in all reality, like that was a huge coping mindset for me as a kid. Was like whether it was school or a big game or whatever it was, like I walked in there with the mindset of I am Batman, I am Darth Maul, I'm these people, I'm these characters that have been through torment and have been through circumstances that on a normal person would have not gone through, and if have anything peaked since then. So also. He's the coolest character in Star Wars.
He's the only guy with a double-bladed lightsaber.
He's the coolest character in Star Wars. Like, I don't care what anybody says. That's not up for debate. Darth Maul is the, like, the sexiest character in Star Wars. And I don't mean sexiest in terms of sex appeal. I mean, like, in terms of, like, I don't know how else you use that word.
He's got the dark robes.
But, like, y'all know what I mean.
Lightsaber.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean. Like, not literal, but, like, just in terms of, like, aesthetic and the way he moves.
The doors open.
That's the other thing. It's the way he moves. He's ominous, and he doesn't talk a lot. And he lets his eyes... That's something I love about Maul. He lets his eyes do a lot of talking. And it's like, especially in that first movie, is like...
Oh, yeah, where, like, he stares in the camera. It feels like he's burning holes.
Like, he's not going to say a lot to you, but he's going to look at you, and you're going to be able to tell what he's saying.
Yeah, that moment when the doors open, you just hear, bum, bum,
and he raises his head.
And you're like, oh, no. And he goes, zoom, zoom. You're like, oh, they're going to die. One of them's going to die.
And we want to be like, oh, all right.
And they're like, all right.
And then, you know, especially going into the Clone Wars, obviously he was my favorite thing in the Clone Wars. I mean, dude, the monologues that Maul had were beautifully done. Some of the best fights. I mean, whether you want to go into he's got like 3 with Obi-Wan. He's got the one with Obi-Wan and his brother. He's got the one with his brother and the Emperor. That's
a good one.
Yeah, that's a really good one. He's got the arc where he's taking over the pirates and the kind of the underworld of
like the Black Sun
arc,
yeah.
And there's a lot of cool stuff with him. And to your point, when you were talking about him, one of the biggest things I like about him is the fact that like he's adaptable. Is like once the Sith kind of fell and he kind of wasn't, you know, oh wait, how did we forget the Ahsoka fight? The Ahsoka fight as well.
Yeah.
But once the Sith kind of fell and everything, like he was like, all right, well, time to adapt.
Yeah.
Like Maul's a survivor. He's gonna figure out how to. He's like, all right, well, if I can't be an apprentice to the Emperor anymore and I can't be a head Sith, I guess I'll go like run the underworld now and make a bunch of money as an outlaw.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what he goes and does. And those are just some of the many reasons I love Maul. And he's also just definitely like a comfort character for me. Like you know, like I said, as a kid, he was my favorite. So he's my main in Battlefront 2, if you couldn't tell.
Oh, yeah.
He's my main in Battlefront 2.
Darth Vader and
Darth Vader
Maul,
and
respectively.
Maul. Yeah. So but yeah, all right. So we burned through our top 5 characters of Star Wars. So we're going to go straight into the read of the week, which will be different because we're doing a Star Wars special. We're each going to give you a trade that we recommend you read, and that is coming up next.
All right, welcome back. So it's like Gunnar said, we're doing our read of the week, and it's going to look a little different. So we each have a Star Wars book that we would like to share with y'all, and we're going to have Gunnar go first. What do you got for us?
So I know some of y'all might know the Star Wars Legends trade series that they do. For me, go do yourself a favor and pick up the Boba Fett. Okay. Like I just said, he's my second favorite character in Star Wars for a reason, and this trade is a huge reason as to why. This makes you... Okay, first of all, I just want to outline the art in this. Now, I'm going to get up, because normally we'll show you art from here. I want you to see this art. Now, don't worry, I'm going to find a panel with no spoilers. But just so you can kind of get an idea here. It's very Alex Ross pastel heavy art, okay? We're getting a little close and personal on this episode of Gotham Graffiti. All right. So, number one, the artwork alone is stellar in this book. Number two, this gives so much characterization to Boba Fett. And I don't mean as an assassin or a bounty hunter or as a fighter or as a man. You see some family matters arise in this book that you did not think you were going to see. And not his dad. So you get to see a lot of that, which provides layers to Boba Fett. You get to see a different side of him with that.
Okay.
You get to see there's a issue in here where it is a throwback to it's a Jango Fett mission through the eyes of Boba. And it really drives home. Like when I was talking about earlier.
Like when he was a kid?
Yes. You get to see how much he loves his father. And you get to see that adoration for his father and how he thinks of him. You also get to see Jango Fett in his prime for like a couple pages, which is pretty sweet.
Nice. Which is what we all want.
Yeah. And so the way this is broken up is I would say probably 3/5 of this is the first arc. So this collects 3 different stories. The first one's pretty much the bulk of it. It's about probably 65 to 70% of it. And then the other 2 are really good. There's one of the arcs, which is a lot of fun to read, is there's an imposter Boba Fett. There's someone going around the galaxy picking up bounties, posing as Boba Fett. And obviously Boba Fett gets word of that, and that does not fly with him. And so you get to see that ensue. And so this is just, for me, this is one of my favorite. This is probably in my top 3 Star Wars books I have in my library. Where we differ a little bit is, and maybe we'll do a video on this one day, just so you know how much of a statement that is. I have a wall of a library. I'm a big omnibus guy and trades and single issues. So like I've got probably upwards of, I don't know what, like maybe 1,200 books on that shelf.
Sounds about right, yeah.
Just something stupid like that. And so for this being in my top 3 of my Star Wars shelves, that shows you how much I love this book. Like I said, the artwork, the pacing's great as well. So there's no missed opportunity with the pacing. You're not dragging in any spots. You're not trying to rush through something. Everything is done very calculated in terms of the beat and the storytelling of it.
Because I know with bigger books like that usually becomes an issue.
Where you get kind of in the middle
just
of it.
do like, what are we doing? Like,
yeah, it's like, let's get to it.
Yeah.
And you don't run into that with this. So you get to see Boba Fett in his prime. This takes place in between Empire and Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
So this is, you get to see some pretty freaking cool stuff. You get to see, like I said, you get to see Boba as a young man, as a kid. You get, in certain issues, you get Clone Wars-esque animation art style in this as well.
Oh, nice.
It's just, it's a great book with really good, like, you see what I'm saying? Like, you get the classic
That's
Star Wars.
Cool panel.
Oh, well, okay, so this has also got the panel of Boba Fett where it's like the really iconic picture of him. I don't think I'll be able to find it right now off the top of my head. But you know the panel where he's, it's like the yellow background and his armor's all tattered and it's like cartoonized and it's like, the name's Fett.
Oh, yeah.
That's in this.
Oh, cool.
So that's this book.
Yeah.
So do yourself a favor. Go pick up this trade of the Star Wars Legends Boba Fett.
All right. So
what do you got for us?
I have the Darth Vader run. So there's 4 issues in this little run. This is the first one. I do have all 4 of them, and I have read all 4 of them. But this picks up like immediately after Revenge of the Sith, so like right after he becomes Darth Vader.
Oh, really?
And so over the course of the 4 books, you get to see, because like no one really knows who Vader is at this point.
Right.
And so you get to see him like make a name for himself, and you just get to see him do really cool stuff. Like it's just him, because with every book, so every issue, he's hunting down another Jedi. So like Jedis who have escaped Order 66, right? And so he goes to these different planets, hunting down these Jedi. I think the only one he doesn't do it is the 4th one, but for it's
is this the run where he has the vision of fighting them all?
No, it is not.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
But you get to see basically his dive into like madness almost, like how evil he becomes. Like he has to go through a bunch of trials. Like the Emperor's like, you've done well, but it's time for you to prove yourself.
Yeah.
And so like he has to go survive on a planet at one point, and he has to like, he has to go and kill a Jedi so he can steal their kyber crystal, bleed it, and then turn it red. Like it's it's just a lot of cool stuff. And then
it's just Vader.
I don't want to spoil it, but at the very end, there's a number one. At the very end, you get to see how his castle comes to be on Mustafar. Like you get to see the construction, what went into all of that. But at the very end, there's a fight in the Force. I won't say against who, but it.
You're gonna have to tell me after we.
It's
cut.
yeah.
I want to know now.
Hey, don't worry.
I want to know.
But like, there's a lot of foreshadowing of what is to come for his character in the original trilogy. And it's just done masterfully, in my opinion. And I mean, you know, art's great, kind of like the Boba Fett book. The art is great. There's so many cool like dialogue moments. Like I will spoil this part. There's a part where they're hunting these Jedi, and the one of the Jedi figures out. He's actually a member on the High Council. I don't remember exactly what his name is. He's the one with like the two horns.
I don't think you're talking. I can't remember his name. Though.
So he figures out what the trigger word is to execute Order 66, right? And so they're being chased by, because like they're stormtroopers, but they're like clone troopers.
Right.
Yeah, they're clone troopers who became stormtroopers, so they still have all their programming. And so he goes, I know how to like get around him. He said he tells them to execute Order 66, and they turn on the Inquisitors.
Sweet.
And so that he uses that as a distraction to get away. That's not a huge plot point, but it is a really cool moment.
Just cool moment.
But also, like I just said, you get to see the Inquisitors and how Darth Vader feels about them, what he like, you know, how he leads them. There's one more panel I'll talk about where he like it opens with him like fighting an Inquisitor, and he just lobs off his hand. And the high
is this like training? Why is he fighting? Oh, okay.
And the Grand Inquisitor comes in. He's like, "Hey, can you stop hurting the Inquisitors, please?" And it was funny because there's a line the Grand Inquisitor says. He's like, "What is this going to teach them?" And then it like zooms in on Darth Vader's face. He goes, "Loss." I was like,
cool.
"Oh!"
That's
and then they walk into the other room, and you see all the Inquisitors. Like one's got a robot leg, one's got a robot hand. Like it's just.
He's been doing it for 6 months.
Yeah, he's just like who are these guys and why do I need them?
So is this one that you could recommend as a one-off, or is this something that you say
you need to collect the whole run?
Okay.
Because I mean the first one's really good. My favorite's probably the last one, but like he goes to Calamari, the water planet. Like there's just a lot of cool. You get to see areas of the galaxy you don't really see in other forms of media, but that is definitely one I would recommend to pick up. This is Darth Vader. The first one's called Imperial Machine. It came out like 2017. It was really popular at the time.
Yeah, because I still need to get that because I literally, ironically enough, I have every single Vader run except that. Yeah. I need to get that. So yeah, maybe I'll get that now because that sounds pretty sweet.
Yeah. So but that is our reads of the week, and we're gonna go into our final segment.
Okay, guys, so to close this special out, we know this has been a long one, so we're going to try and keep this not too long, let y'all get back to whatever you're doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through our top 3 favorite Star Wars films in order from 3 to 1, and as sort of an honorable mention between 2 and 1, we are going to list our favorite Disney Star Wars project for you. So, Scott, why don't you start us off with your number 3?
So, my number 3 is A New Hope. It is the most nostalgia I have for all of the Star Wars movies. When I first watched it, I was in kindergarten.
Sweet.
And I had heard of like what Star Wars was, and I thought it was pretty cool. And I was begging my parents like, "Hey, can we watch Star Wars?" And my dad was like, in time you'll watch it.
Not yet.
And so I came home. It was a Friday night. I came home from school. And my parents went to Blockbuster before they picked me up from school.
Oh man, I miss Blockbuster.
Yeah, they went to Blockbuster and they picked up A New Hope.
Sweet.
And so we had like pizza, ice cream, and we watched the first Star Wars movie.
That's a good memory.
Yeah, and I thought it was just the coolest thing. To kind of give myself a way of here of how much of a Star Wars nerd as I am. Whenever I'm running on the treadmill and I'm like running a mile.
He's been a nerd out.
I listen to the song where they're doing the trench run in Star Wars, and I'll try and finish the mile before the Death Star blows up.
Door.
But like the trench run, you get to meet old Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're introduced to Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader. And I know that's not everyone's favorite Star Wars movie, but
it's okay if it makes you feel any better. When I'm working out, I listen to the closing credit scene of Mask of the Phantasm.
Oh yeah.
When I'm feeling just a little bit sad,
Batman's Destiny.
as I'm doing curls, just. I don't need it. I don't need it. So it's okay. I understand.
But yeah, it's the most nostalgia I have for a Star Wars movie. I know it's not everyone's favorite, but it has a place in my heart. So.
Right on, man. Right on.
Number 3.
Okay, so mine's super unpopular. So keep in mind what I said at the beginning of the episode. My number 3 is Attack of the Clones.
Oh yeah.
So obviously, I understand no one's probably going to agree with me on that, and I'm probably showing my age there.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, we're saying our favorite, not what we think is the best.
Right.
I just love Attack of the Clones because I feel like in a lot of ways it's the most stylized out of all the Star Wars movies. I feel like we get to see a lot of different planets. We get to see Coruscant at night. We get to see Coruscant during the day. We get to see Felucia. We get to see Geonosis. Or is it Geonosis or is it
It's Geonosis.
It's Geonosis. And people always talk about how there's not good fights in that movie. I disagree. Like I think
the arena fight's pretty cool.
The arena fight, then you get the fight with Yoda and
Dooku.
It's Yoda, Dooku, and or who's it before Yoda? Is it Anakin and it's Anakin and
Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Anakin and Obi-Wan. Then you get the fight with Yoda and Dooku.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's of all the Star Wars movies, when you're talking about just like a cool, fun movie that's not like. Anything crazy. That's why I like it. You get to see, I'm a big Mace Windu guy, so you get to see Mace Windu kind of pop off in it. Mm-hmm. You get to see Jango Fett, like you just said. You get the arena fight. The stuff with Anakin and Padme is goofy, but it's looking back on it now. It's like you can watch it and enjoy it. Like I said, the visuals of it. I think the visuals in Attack of the Clones are really good.
Oh yeah, like when the carriers come in.
Yeah,
with the clones.
Yeah, and, you get some really good clone stuff in Attack of the Clones as well.
You
do. You get the Obi-Wan and Jango Fett fight on Kamino. Mm-hmm. You get there's a lot of cool stuff. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's best or great, but it's just a really cool Star Wars movie. And so for me, I've got it at my number 3.
Okay, I can respect that.
Yeah, all right. So what do you got number 2?
So number 2 for me is Revenge of the Sith.
I feel like our 2 and 1 are going to be the same, so we should probably... What's your 1?
It's Return of the Jedi.
Okay, yeah, so our 2 and 1 are the exact
same. So our 2 and 1, yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about Revenge of the Sith real quick, but it's the best of the...
Oh, dude, so blasphemous. Neither of us have Empire.
I know, right? Hey, I like Empire.
I don't like... I'm the Star Wars...
You don't like Empire?
I think Empire's boring, dude.
Really?
Okay, let me clarify because I know I'm going to get jumped, but
this is going to go on.
Here's something that I don't... Do you want to know why I have a bicker with Empire? Because at the very end, when Luke finds out that Darth Vader's his dad and gets his hand lopped off, not 5 minutes later, you get him, Leia, and Han in the ship, and they're all just kind of like, hey, how's it going?
Well, no, remember Han wasn't there.
Or not, okay, so him and Leia.
Yeah.
And they're just like, we're brother and sister. It's like, dude, your dad who's like Hitler, your dad's Hitler, basically, and you just got your hand chopped off.
Yeah, but he's happy to be alive. That's the whole reason.
It feels dated to me that they just kind of like skip over.
Well, that was in the 80s whenever they would have a big, blockbuster
No,
movie,
I know.
And
it's
they
a little
couldn't
bit of
end it on a downer.
It's a little bit of the times, I know, but just for me, when the first time I ever watched Empire, I was like, what? All right. So yeah, anyway, let's go back into Return of the Jedi.
It is blasphemous that we don't have it, but I still very much enjoy Empire. It's just of the 3, it's not my favorite in the original trilogy, which I know
it's maybe in my top 5.
It's in my top 5.
My last 2.
If we were extending this another 2, it would definitely be on there. It's just
I might like A New Hope more than I like Empire.
Well, I do too, but.
So I might.
Empire is still a great movie,
because Phantom Menace isn't in my top 5 just for Maul. It's the only movie I get to see my favorite character.
I know, but just for one character.
Dude. Let's say Luke Skywalker is your favorite character.
Mm.
He's only in one Star Wars movie.
Yeah, all right.
That would be in your top 5.
I could give
because you can only see him in that one.
Right. Okay. I can.
So yeah, I don't think Empire makes my top 5.
Yeah.
But anyway, keep going. Yeah, keep going.
So number 2 is Revenge of the Sith. We'll both kind of go back and forth and talk about it. But it's easily the best of the prequel trilogy. You get to see the fall of, Anakin Skywalker. You have the Mustafar fight between him and Obi-Wan. You get to see the breakdown of their relationship. You get to see the sick, twisted mind of Sidious and how he's corrupted, the Senate, and how people are blindly following him, thinking that he's doing what's best for the galaxy when he's trying to take over, basically rule the entire galaxy. And, there's still, even though the clones turn on the Jedi, you still get a lot of cool clone stuff.
You get a lot of cool... I think one of my favorite things about Revenge of the Sith is it feels like there's a lot of meat on the bone in terms of visuals and, just action. Like, you get the Sidious and Yoda fight. You get the Sidious and Mace Windu and Jedi fight. You get the Anakin and Obi-Wan fight. You get Yoda on Kashyyyk with the Wookiees.
Yeah.
You get Grievous and Obi-Wan and the 212s. And, there's just a lot of, in terms of meat on the bone of Star Wars, there's a lot to enjoy and sit back and watch the movie.
Yeah, have you seen that, there's a background clone during the Battle of Utapau that there's a droid coming at him and he just
Oh, yes, yeah. He just uppercuts him.
Yeah. You're like, oh crap.
Sweet.
But yeah, there's
a lot of good, if you're a Grievous fan, there's good Grievous stuff
in
it.
It's the only movie we get to see Grievous in.
Good Grievous stuff in it.
But yeah, that moment whenever Yoda figures out, finally what's going on, and, he drops his cane and clutches his heart. It's just man.
You get to watch Anakin slaughter the younglings.
Yeah,
with the 501st.
Which has been memed to death at this point, so...
Master Skywalker. I'm gonna die.
Well, no, I remember when I watched that movie for the first time as a kid, and I started crying.
It's just
because I remember I watched it. I had a close buddy when we were kids. We'd watch Star Wars movies, and I was having a sleepover, and we watched that movie, and it's okay, let's go to bed now. Yeah. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just remembering all the deaths that I saw. I was like, I can't do it. But anyway.
So let's go into number 1, Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, so Return of the Jedi, I don't care what anyone says.
I love Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi, I'm not going to say it's the best overall movie of the original trilogy.
I will. It's the best overall movie of the original trilogy.
Okay, alright. But the reason I say that, the reason I don't say that is because of the Ewok stuff, and there's just a lot of filler in the
Dude, I don't get that. I like the Ewok stuff. What is y'all's problems with the Ewok stuff? They're not bad.
It's just kind of I would have preferred to see the Wookiees.
I guess, but we get Ewok hunting Battlefront now.
Yeah.
There was a means to an end there.
Yeah, they were hey, 30 years from now.
Don't worry, guys. We're long playing this. But, for me, ironically enough, Revenge of the Sith was my favorite for a long time. What really turned me in Return of the Jedi was when we moved in together,
It's been 8 months now.
8 months. So, when did they do the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi? It was, right before that or something?
I think it was in the fall. It was fall of last year.
Yeah, whenever it was, we went to go see it. And this is what I remember. So, my dad used to tell me, my dad was in military school. And the way they used to run military school back in the day was you got to go see a movie once a month. Mm-hmm. And so, you didn't get to pick it. It was just whatever, the colonel or whoever picked it, that's what you watched. And one of the movies they went and saw one time was Star Wars A New Hope. Mm-hmm. And my dad said when he talked about movie theater experiences, that was a whoa. And I remember, like I said, when I was growing up, I kind of thought Star Wars was a little goofy. And I was I can like it for what it is. But I remember when we went to go see Return of the Jedi. And actually sitting down in a movie theater, in a packed movie theater, and watching that movie play out, I was like, oh, I get it. Yeah. I get it. It's the way I can equate it to is if you think pro wrestling's goofy, which it is, but if you think pro wrestling's goofy, and then you go to a live match, and then you're oh, okay, I get it. It's fun. And so that night had a huge special place in my heart because I really fell in love with Return of the Jedi. Mm-hmm. It felt so much more impactful than when I'd watched it on DVD in my house as a kid.
That was a really fun time going to the theater with a bunch of nerds sitting down,
getting your icy and your popcorn, and it was just a bunch of fun. There was a guy in the front row dressed up as Han. It was just, it was fun. It was just a lot of fun. And Return of the Jedi, I think to your point, just the story of redemption we get in.
Yeah.
The undying redemption of his father and Luke.
What I was saying just a minute ago, I know I said that it's not the best overall movie, but the last 45 minutes of Luke, Vader, and the Emperor is the best Star Wars will ever be ever.
Yeah.
And I'm not willing to debate that. Like that's just how it is. And I know I kind of went on a rant, you know, in the previous segment, just about like the whole Luke and Vader and redemption and hope and, you know, refusing to give up despite, you know, the evil he's committed and, you know, willing to show, you know, one of the most evil people in the galaxy compassion and standing up to really like a bully to his father and saying like, you're not going to control him anymore and you're not going to control me. I'm a Jedi. You failed. Like that. And then even like...
And I'll die for it.
Yeah, and I'll die for it. And then you have the scene afterwards of whenever Darth Vader's dying and he's like, you're right, you were right. Like, that's just, it's peak Star Wars. And
other than that, like, I think a lot of the other stuff in history, I mean, we get the Jabba stuff, and like, you know, it's kind of goofy, but it's fun. Like, you get to see it, you get to see Tatooine, you get to see Jabba, you get to see Princess Leia. You know, there's a lot of good stuff in that movie. But, and, like, I also, like, dude, yeah, like I said, I genuinely do, I like the Ewok stuff. Like, I like the visuals of the forest, and I like watching the stormtroopers on their speeders.
It is a cool, like, aesthetic.
Yeah, like, dude, I like it. Like, I get how, like, I understand you would rather see the Wookiee. I fully get that.
Well, because that was the original plan.
Right, no, I know. But, like, for what it is, I think it's very enjoyable and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but that's that for me. Unless you got anything else to add, I think we can kind of...
Well, do you want to do our favorite Disney project?
Oh, we forgot.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so yeah, what's your favorite Disney project?
So my favorite Disney project is season 7 of The Clone Wars. Specifically
I forgot that was technically Disney.
Yeah. Oh, did you forget that?
That's not my answer because I forgot.
Yeah.
Okay, that would... But I'll
talk about it for you.
I'll give my other answer.
But like the last 4 episodes of that, like it almost felt like watching another Star Wars movie.
It's a movie.
And it was so cool because, you know, like sometimes like when you're watching the Clone Wars and then you go and watch one of the prequel movies with Anakin in it, it almost feels like there's a slight disconnect as to like the characterization of Anakin in the movies versus in the TV show. And watching that crossover between the TV show and Revenge of the Sith really kind of like tied everything together. And it also, we get to see what happens to Ahsoka and what happens to Rex.
Maul.
And we get Maul in it, which was super cool to see. And like my favorite visual from that 4-episode arc is whenever Darth Vader, like as Darth Vader, he comes to the planet years later after they crash. And he picks up Ahsoka's lightsaber and turns it on, and then he just kind of like, you know, deactivates it and like slowly turns around and walks away.
You can tell he's mourning it.
Yeah, and I saw this thing one time, and I was like, oh man, where somebody put a caption over like that picture of him holding the lightsaber, and he's like, Darth Vader didn't need to go to some backwater ice planet to go find a lightsaber from some possibly dead Jedi, but Anakin Skywalker needed to.
Anakin needed
Which, like, that's just like...
It's like that last little bit of him before Luke returns.
Yeah, exactly. He's just kind of like, all right, it's gone. Like,
it's time to...
Yeah.
Well, I like that, man. Yeah, okay, so yeah, that would have been my answer. I didn't even think about how that's technically Disney, but I'm not mad at my answer. Mine's the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. Like I said, that is what got me into Star Wars. I think it's some of the best stuff Star Wars has put out in general. If you have not watched the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, go watch it, especially the second season with all the Boba Fett stuff. It's so good.
Yes.
Go watch the first 2 seasons of Mando. I've already talked about it enough. I don't need to keep going on it. But yeah, for me, the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian for me are peak Star Wars. It's in my top probably 3 or 5 in terms of Star Wars media. So that's it for me, guys. But we're going to go ahead and close it out.
Thank y'all so much for watching. I know this was a long one, and we appreciate it.
Star Wars special, guys.
Yes. This is probably going to end up being like an hour at this point.
Probably more.
Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you would, please hit that subscribe bell so we can get more content to you guys. Thank you for watching our first edition of the Star Wars special, and we will see you next time.